You're watching Learn How to Increase Your Energy Naturally by Dr. Alyssa Gall on Resonance Wellness TV, part of our Whole Life Medicine Alleviate series. Keep in the loop about future webinars and events on whole-life-medicine.com. Good evening, and welcome to this presentation on learning to increase your energy naturally. My name is Dr. Gall, and I will be your guide on this webinar where we're going to explore this pretty timely topic, especially now with the holiday season. So our lecture on energy today comes under the Alleviate from the Whole Life Medicine model, and that's the first step in health strategy at Resonance Wellness. Alleviate is the first step in my approach to patient guidance at Resonance Wellness, and in short, there's three considerations when we're looking at strategies to resolve a health issue in Alleviate. The first is to consider what the root causes are in our health situation and asking ourselves, what is the setup? Tonight, we're going to talk about the things we do that can rob us of our energy and how we might change those causes. The second is to look at the state of the tissues involved. In the clean slate process, we look at how to improve the cleaning up of the tissues that get bogged down in disease processes. And when we're talking about energy, there's aspects of diet and detox that can be big underpinnings. Lastly, we're going to look at missing ingredients affecting the production of energy, both in the metabolism and in the cycles that create more energy. So with those thoughts in mind, let's just dive in. So I'm super happy to have this opportunity to share this information with you. So my goal for our time together is to help you understand how to naturally, effectively, and enjoyably maximize your energy levels. So to start us off, I would love for you to answer the following questions, either on the chat box or to yourself. You don't have to share it with anyone if you don't want to. But on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is optimal, where do you think your current energy levels are? And then secondly, why do you give it that rating? And thirdly, why do you think it is that it's actually either that good or that low? I'm assuming lots of people are going to feel low, and this is one of the reasons why they are attending this webinar in the first place. So I'm sure there's not too many 10s, is what I'm saying. And there really should be 10s. We should be having like 8, 9, 10 as an energy, like the majority of the time. Obviously, there's going to be times where energy is going to be poor for obvious reasons like illness, or that you've just, run a marathon or stuff like that. But on average, I find that lots of people coming into my practice don't have really great energy systems. And there's, like I said, lots of reasons for that. So we're going to take a look at some of those things right now. So there's a number of obviously significant benefits you can experience when you cultivate your capacity for energy. Some of the more obvious ones are obviously include maximized focus and productivity for work, more time to spend with family and friends where you're more engaged and not bagged. Higher levels of physical fitness often will come with more energy and vice versa. Much better mental clarity and cognitive functioning. More time for hobbies and cultivation of artistic or creative pursuits. And so the question of what you can do with more energy is really a matter of personal preference. So when you start to maximize your energy levels with like an all-natural habit or method, it's then up to you what you get to do with your time. And that's in part what makes it so exciting. So let's start with the first obvious one. One of the most obvious ways to increase your energy levels is by improving your nutrition. In terms of the foods which provide the energy or provide the body with the most energy boosting nutrients, I would suggest that foods with a lower glycemic index are ultimately better options for most people's energy. So what's a low glycemic food? It's basically a food that's whole and unrefined where possible, which doesn't quickly break down in the GI tract. And so it influences your blood glucose more sustainably over time, rather than giving a big, quick hit of energy that's short-lived. So foods like beans and like whole grains, like brown rice, and nuts have less impact on your blood sugar than things with a higher glycemic load, like a refined rice or spaghetti or potatoes or cornflakes or juice. or sugary drinks, even though we've been taught to associate starchy foods with energy providing principles and often with preloading for sports. The long-term effects of consuming this kind of food really has negative impacts on your energy levels. So the main issue with these foods is that the carbs they're providing are just basically gunning your blood sugar, and then your body responds in kind by kind of like reining that in. So you get this kind of like boost crash sort of effect from doing that. But when you use foods that are whole and you're using them in a more balanced way, you get a more sustainable energy. So potato chips, not so great. So the other thing that we want to do is boost your metabolism. And what I mean by boost metabolism, I mean the metabolism is the sum of reactions which are converting your macronutrients, so the fats and the proteins and the carbs in your food, to energy. So the foods that play to the strengths in your metabolism will also provide you with a higher level of energy. So aiming to increase your metabolism is a great way to shift your focus from consuming like the high energy foods, which are misleading in nutritional worth, to things that are more sustaining for you. And so this is one of the reasons that I usually use metabolic typing in office, so we can understand where your strengths and weaknesses are metabolically, and then plan for reasonable balance over time. Optimal metabolism also requires vitamins and minerals, which are cofactors on metabolic pathways in your cells. And the metabolic pathways are basically the pathways that are producing energy, but they're also producing everything else in your body: hormones, neurotransmitters, pro and anti-inflammatory molecules. When all these pathways aren't well supported, cells generally are lower in energy production, and that results in tiredness and fatigue. So if you eat an appropriate range of foods for you and you digest them well, this is way less likely. So increasing physical movement, so exercising is also a necessary factor in increasing metabolism, because you do need to have a demand. So the combined effect of using nutrient-dense foods that are appropriate for you and exercise really is an increase in abundance of more energy. If you're interested in doing metabolic typing, just let us know at the office, and we can usually give you a good ballpark of the pieces in your diet that tend to be a little bit underserved. Now, obviously, like I was just saying, increasing fitness levels is a key way to encourage overall energy levels. And then, although it seems counterintuitive, even when you're like exercising quite hard, endorphins produced in response to that kind of activity create a feeling of energy in the body. But it is important to engage in the right kind and intensity of fitness activity, because you want to encourage energy levels without creating too much depletion. So I usually tell patients that exercise that makes them feel energized after is perfect. But if you need to recuperate or take a nap after, or you can't exercise again for a few days, that's clearly over the line of what's beneficial. Activities that encourage calm energy are more effective at sustaining energy release throughout the day and helping you avoid the danger of burnout or slipping into fatigue. There are things like yoga or Tai Chi, Pilates, strength training. And remember from our Start Here, Start Now series, the amount of time can be as short as 10 minutes in a day to get this benefit started. If you don't know what the Start Here, Start Now series is, last year we did a longer series of webinars on really specific topics. There was, I think, 18 lectures in all that really encapsulated what the best approaches are to certain things. And we did talk about this in a lot more detail, where we basically expanded a whole 45 minutes on exercise and how to do it the best. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to check out the course page, because we always have those. If you do a good exercise, you'll also improve your heart strength. So when you improve your cardiovascular strength, you expend less energy. It just doesn't take as much energy to do things, because your capacity to move fluids around your body is more efficient. You can also, with increasing fitness levels, get a much better sleep pattern, and that will help you to sustain better energy in the day. Exercise too has been shown to help people have a sharper focus mentally and an improved ability to think in general, as well as decreased incidence of depression. It overall makes you feel more energetic. Sometimes too, if people are under a lot of stress, running or like doing something that's intense like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be running, but something with a lot of energy expenditure, helps you kind of run away from the tiger, closes down some of those stress loops. And that can actually make a huge difference in how you perceive your own energy level. And to speak to that kind of a little bit more, like when we look at energy and mental health, your energy is obviously not just your physical energy from food. Yeah, that's an important part of it. We definitely need to support that. But your mental health has a direct effect on your energy levels, just as your physical health does. So when we consider the mental energy that you might expend during periods of intense anxiety or depression, or even just a day of being really worried, this becomes evident. And so it's important to maintain awareness of where your mental energy is in order to increase overall energy. So think of your mental field as a collection of things you take with you everywhere you go. One of the best ways of divesting yourself of the burden of that pile that you drag around is to use the mental field technique, which is the technique we teach patients in clinic that helps to reframe and dissolve traumatic associations that are often at the base of distressing interpretations of what's happening to you. And the mental field is very much an automated, conditionable response to events. It's a set of responses that are meant to protect you from threats, but it also sees threats where there likely are none. So you can't outthink this part of your functioning. If you could, you would. So we use the mental field technique, which is a tapping technique that helps reset the mental perceptions to a more neutral place. So I usually tell patients, pick your top 10 crappiest moments, or your most emotionally charged situations in life to process through. It doesn't mean you won't have the memory of it any longer, or that it hasn't helped form who you are. It just means that you're not dragging the negative thoughts and associations you formed while going through it. So the handout for how to do this is on the Essential Handouts tab on whole-life-medicine.com. And when you just process through just the things that you can identify as being your baggage, basically drop it. And that prevents you from using your energy to hold all of that negative charge. It's a huge amount of energy that people expend. We've been using that tapping technique now I think I've been using it for at least 15 years. It's got to be at least a decade and a half. And it's one of the most valuable skills that you can learn. So becoming aware of where your energy is going is key to mastering it and also to cultivating more. So I found that if you can go through most of your baggage with this method, you just have more resources to do other practices that help your energy. And the next one we're going to talk about is meditation. So people are scared of meditation, but meditation helps us to learn how to direct our energy where we need it to go. It's actually fairly simple, but being able to recognize where and how our thoughts are affecting our physical energy is so important if we're going to learn how to let it go into cultivating more positive relationships and connections. So meditation can be done many different ways. It's not just, sitting in one place trying to completely clear your mind. And in fact, I don't recommend that people do that if they are not great, don't have any experience at meditation, because you'll get very frustrated very quickly because you will have monkey mind. So we did a whole lecture about meditation earlier in the year, and you can access that through the whole-life-medicine event page. The replay button is there. And we had some really positive commentary about that lecture, even from some pretty experienced meditators. So I really appreciated that. So go check it out if you haven't seen that one and you actually would like to incorporate meditation. Meditation has super clear effects on the chemistry of relaxation. So it decreases the stress response in essence. And meditators, people who are regular meditators, actually produce more endorphins than runners do, just for meditation. Experienced meditators have a lot of prefrontal cortex activity. And that's the part of the brain that it's kind of more the human part. It is the part that can help you master that fight or flight reptilian brain response. So when you do the mental field technique, like we talked about on this last slide, and then combine it with simple meditation techniques, you've created a double improvement in how much energy is being drained basically by undisciplined thinking and feeling. So I hope that you'll actually take that to heart, because this is obviously, especially if people, for whatever reason, are not physically capable of doing, a good amount of exercise, or they're under a lot of stress, cultivating those techniques is simple, and yet it can be really important. Next thing, trying to avoid stimulants and trying to go a little bit more natural, away from some of the kind of more canned stimulants. So the overuse of stimulants like caffeine is really what we're talking about for the most part here, can have an impact on your energy in several ways. Caffeine actually does give you a boost in terms of energy and performance. I mean, that's really been shown. But this effect actually stops if you use caffeine every day. And the reason for this is because of the effect of caffeine on adenosine metabolism. So adenosine is a neurotransmitter, basically, and caffeine blocks adenosine from acting in the brain. And when this happens, your brain is actually more stimulated. Adenosine is actually something that brings down the amount of energy in your brain. So the increased activity of brain cells under the influence of caffeine leads to this secondary rise in the amount of epinephrine or adrenaline in our bodies. So epinephrine is that fight or flight hormone, so adrenaline, which is basically having very stimulating effects on your brain and body. So while that hormone does technically increase energy levels, caffeine is not a cell powering substance. So in other words, your cells don't generate energy-based activity from caffeine. Rather, it's just stimulating the brain to be more focused and alert. And this is where the confusion arises. And it's why many people think that caffeine actually energizes us, but it's not exactly true. Eventually, though, your body fights back. It makes more adenosine receptors, and then you will not feel normal until you drink something caffeinated. So basically, you create an underfunction over time, which you then normalize with caffeine. You also need to be able to detoxify these compounds, and that takes a certain level of nutrition to achieve. Not having the cofactors for phase 1 detox, and phase 1 detox is literally called caffeine clearance, can make this effect worse over time. Obviously, the effect of caffeine on the cardiovascular system is an increase in pulse and blood pressure, and it mimics a stressor. So you basically get the body into a state of pushing the adrenal, which we all know is an essential part of your energy management system. Most people's adrenals can't take that long term. And so even though there are a lot of health benefits related to drinking coffee, as an example, to keep your energy managed, you should probably be off it for as many days as you're on it for the best results. And also use the least amount for your pleasure. Like if you're drinking a pot every day, you're basically creating those circumstances like we talked about earlier. You're creating a kind of suboptimal overall tone that you're just increasing to normal by drinking that much coffee. So even like with tea, black tea and chocolate, they also contain caffeine derivatives. They're basically other kinds of methylxanthines. They have slightly different effects on the body than caffeine does proper. But and they also have other health benefits, no doubt about it. We've talked about that in other places. But there is good evidence that you want to kind of go in and out of the use of them. So, like every second day would probably be a better balanced thing. And then you'll actually still enjoy whatever your beverage is, but you'll also are not going to damage your energy system. So if you're under a lot of stress and you're using that to pile drive your energy, you probably are actually making things worse. If you're drinking a cup or two and it's a little bit, and you're more inconsistent, you're actually probably getting way more out of it. There is some evidence that you can use like coconut oil to improve brain function. The studies are limited, but a little bit might help. That's why I'm just showing you here the picture of the coconut. I've heard people trying to use MCT oil to make their brain function better. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but like I said, it's not as simple. Caffeine actually has a much better effect if you use it judiciously. So there. And caffeine actually has some really good effects on the digestion. I am not an anti-caffeine person. Those of you who know me know that. I just think if you learn how to use it more appropriately, especially in low energy conditions, you'll be happier with the result. Now, who hasn't heard me talk about drinking more water? I'm like the water Nazi a little bit, I have to admit. So increasing water take can be a super basic step towards increasing energy. We can really get drained and fatigued if our bodies haven't consumed enough water, because in many ways, you're like a battery that always needs fluid to carry the charge. Your brain's mostly water and salt with some fat floating in it, and your digestion needs several liters of back and forth fluid transfers per day to operate efficiently. Your muscles are bags of fluid, and they need water and electrolytes to contract and relax even. Every cell basically needs the appropriate fluids to function optimally. If you're down in fluid, so many things are affected. And really, with less water in your system, your blood volume decreases, so your heart has to work harder. Your blood vessels have to constrict. And then you can't really be surprised when you get a dehydration headache under those conditions. All of this extra energy loss can be avoided simply by increasing the amount of water that we're drinking. Ideally, you want to drink about a third of your body weight in pounds in ounces of water, and add a little sea salt to help electrolytes. So by body weight in pounds versus ounces of water, what I mean is if you're like 150 pounds, that's 50 ounces of water. So it's just short of 2 liters. It's a glass or so short of 2 liters. If you're like 200, obviously it's going to be closer to 65 liters, so just over 2 liters. If you're 100 pounds, a liter is going to be enough. It's really best oriented to weight. So the salt and water handout is on the Essentials tab on whole-life-medicine.com. So if you're not familiar with this concept of using a little bit of sea salt to get the water moving around, it turns out that if you're dehydrated and you're just drinking water, a lot of the time you drink it and you dump it. And you actually lose electrolytes doing so. So sometimes you can actually make it worse. And it takes time to rectify water problems. It doesn't take 2 days of doing water. It takes 3 weeks of doing water. It is a major undertaking for your body to re-regulate fluids. So even if you're dehydrated, it's not just going to suck those in and like do everything great from then on. It just doesn't work like that. There are so many compartments that have to be adjusted for fluids that if you're dehydrated and you don't spend enough time at it, you're not going to completely fix it. And so one of the most important things, so if you actually do this properly, it can solve a digestive problem. It can solve a pain problem. And it sure can solve an energy problem. And in fact, one of the glands that's hardest hit by not being well dehydrated or not being well hydrated is your stress gland, your adrenal gland, because it actually pumps out a whole category of hormones that are called mineralocorticoids. Those are actually the hormones that you're using to govern and regulate electrolyte balance. So when you do a poor job of fluids and a poor job of electrolytes, you're stressing out your stress gland even more. So I am making the plug one more time for drinking water and for the handout, which hopefully everybody who's my patient who's on this call has seen. Now, next thing. For heaven's sakes, do what you love. Passion is energy. Oprah Winfrey said, feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. And we all should emulate her. She's obviously very passionate at what she does. In terms of getting energy from non-food related sources, or drink or exercise, activities and engagement really affects energy levels. Regularly doing activities that you love and feel strongly about doesn't just increase your level of relative happiness and contentment, but it also helps to physically produce more energy. So I like to think of it as more increasing our vitality, that passion for engaging with people and activities that help us to shine and become the most positive version of ourselves in any given moment. So by being honest with ourselves and being open to exploring passions and talents and hobbies and making time for them in the bustle of everyday life, we're automatically injecting a little bit more energy into our day. So what is it that you love to do? Notice how much more energized you are next time you engage with that activity. And then the next step is really simple. Just do more of it. I'm lucky. I love my job. I'm super energized by it. I don't get bagged from doing my job because I just love you all and all of your stories and all of your problems. And that's good because that's my job, is to help you fix those. But I also love singing, and I'm totally energized by it. Those of you who don't know that, I sing in a performance choir, and we just finished singing for the Civic Symphony at the Jack Singer. Totally energized by that. I could do that all day long for the most part. I also love art and museums and decorating the house and gardening and needlework and hiking and skiing, and all those activities make me enthused and super energetic. And I encourage all of you to find those things that make the same effect for you. If you hate your job, it's going to affect your energy. If you don't make any time for what really floats your boat, it's going to affect your energy. Regardless of what it is that you have to do during the day, you have to carve out the time to do the stuff that you really love. And if you don't love the stuff that you're doing most of, then you got to figure out a way to change it if you can, because it's one of the biggest challenges, I think, of our time, that people do stuff that they hate. So don't do that. Take a lesson and go and find the things that you just absolutely adore. Now, also we want to talk a little bit here about rhythm in sleep. So I'm writing down here, set your alarm, but really what I mean is figure out your natural rhythm and design your day to accommodate it. That is a great way to manage your energy. Everybody has a circadian rhythm, the cycle where part of the day you're up and about and the other part you're supposed to be asleep. But not everyone has the same rhythm time-wise. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there's a man named Dr. Bruce, and he has kind of elucidated 4 major chronotypes or time types. And he's named them after animals. So bear with me because I'm going to give you the animal names. So most people are bears. They follow the sun. And they have a steady energy through the day with a little dip in the afternoon. So in winter, they need more sleep, and in the summer, they need less. I am totally a bear. I am up in the summer with the sun. I wake up much earlier in summer naturally, and in winter, not so much. When it's this time of the year, I'm really waiting to the very last moment before I absolutely have to get out of bed. But in the summer, I love being up for more full hours. In the case of a lion is a kind of person who gets up really early and has most of their best hours in the very beginning of the day. And those best hours are usually over before most other people are waking up. And then they fizzle out later in the day, and they just go to bed early and they start it all over again. I've definitely had close friends who are like lions, and they're up at 4 or 5, and they love it. They love the peace and the quiet in the early morning. They like getting most of their work done then. I used to have a friend in medical school who did this all the time. I couldn't do it, but she did a great job of it. And she'd have most of our notes done by 7:38 when I was traipsing in. So, but then again, she always fizzled out, and then she had to go to bed early. But she loved the morning. And then wolves tend to have a slow start, and they feel their best energy kind of early afternoon, and then another later spike in energy when most people are going to bed. And they do their best thinking at night. Just a totally different pattern. And then there's the dolphin. Dolphins are kind of the perfectionistic think too muchers, and they have light sleep and often not enough sleep. And they often just ruminate way too much. They're thinking about all the things that went wrong. And so the pattern is that they don't, they often kind of waste energy going around in circles. Now, I don't really know if dolphins are really like that or why he named it dolphins, because I don't really perceive dolphins that way, but I could be wrong. But the whole point is, if you know that you are better off, like you have better energy later at night, or later in the day, then try to orient your day that way. I'm surprised actually if you can work with an employer to change your hours. Sometimes that actually works the best for people. Some professions it's very difficult to do that because they're either appointment based like mine, or I can change it because I'm the boss of everything. But so it works perfectly for me, the way that I have it organized. But if you need to change it around, sometimes it's actually worth talking to an employer, or if you work for yourself, just giving yourself permission to make the day work for you. Then a lot of the time, energy things can be managed, especially if you are truly a night owl and that's the way that you want to do it. Now, you can always try and force yourself to change that. But what I found is that a lot of people kind of naturally have a pattern. And if you can work with your natural pattern, you will just get better energy over the course of your day. So think about that a little bit and see if there's something that maybe that you can wiggle around. Now, a notable change also can come in energy if you reduce screen time. If you reduce the amount of time you're spending kind of plugged in. That way you can become more present, and you also can become more alert, which also contributes to improved energy levels. And so although it may initially seem that removing ourselves from technology can literally give you more energy, when you're breaking it down, it just means that all the energy that would previously have gone on mental analytics and scrolling is now free to be used elsewhere. The blue on screens can also mess with your circadian rhythm because it's imitating daylight regardless of the time of the day. So it sends signals to your brain that change the melatonin levels. You can get red filters for your phone or blue filtering glasses that decrease the effect on your circadian rhythm, especially if you're working on a computer all day long, and especially if you're doing that under already blue lights like fluorescent lights and you don't have access to natural light. So understanding this kind of energy usage can be likened to understanding, where your electrical energy is going in your house. There's, only so many outlets, most of which we have minimal awareness of what's going out when, and screen time is one of these. Too much screen time has really been proven to create more difficulty processing our internal experiences and problems as well as we could, because we're basically being drawn out of ourselves towards a device. And I don't know about you, but I'm always amazed to see how many people are literally walking with their phones in front of them, paying attention to the screen instead of like where they're going. It's really important to put those things away. And we can also talk about, the impact of having an electrical device with that big of a field too close to your body for extended periods of time. You need to put these devices away at night. Put them away from your head. For heaven's sakes, don't sleep on them when they're on. This is not a good idea. It really takes a lot of energy for you to bring a field like that into your own electromagnetics. It's draining. It's the same as having too many electrical devices in your house or having too many things with strong power close to where you want to rest at night. And we've talked about this in other places as well. And I won't get into way more than that here, but managing at least these little devices that seem to really control us is a great way to suck back a little bit more energy. Now, what you can also do to improve energy is spend some time in the sun. So conversely to screen time, sun has an improvement effect on our energy levels. It's easier to feel lighter and brighter and more energized when the sun is out. I think most people feel like that. And the effect of sun exposure is to drive some of the reactions that produce vitamin D in the skin. So you actually use cholesterol like molecules. Well, you actually start with cholesterol, and you make vitamin D out of that with the addition of sunlight. So you actually have a light metabolism related to your exposure to sun, where the light is literally driving the reaction. It's part of the reaction. In fact, when you're in a low mood, exposure to light helps bring light into all levels, like not just chemically, but really into you. And when we use St. John's wort, well, most people will recognize that name, St. John's wort. It's often used kind of like an antidepressant, but what it actually is a photosensitizing agent. It actually literally helps people bring in more light, and you're combating dark feelings by bringing in more light. So human beings are meant to be outside in the sun, maybe not in the direct sun all day long in the, on the beach. That's something a little bit different, but we are meant to have sun exposure. And there are some very important reactions that do not work without the intervention of sunlight. And so when we look at, there's been so much data on vitamin D in recent years. And unfortunately, the best data for vitamin D is not the data of put in vitamin D and see this happen. It's actually epidemiological data on vitamin D, which means that you're collecting information about people's vitamin D levels and their relative sunlight exposure over time and what that does or doesn't do. And clearly the data shows that if you have internally generated enough vitamin D, meaning you've taken your cholesterol, you've gone outside, you've had some sunlight, you've made the vitamin D from your cholesterol molecules using light, that people who have done that actually have pretty much a decrease in many health complaints over time. And if you just take the vitamin D, it isn't the same. There is some data that shows you can superload vitamin D and use it kind of like in a drug-like effect to make certain things happen. But the best data is actually showing it's the light process that you really need. So you need to go outside, for heaven's sakes, not just behind glass. And of course, in Calgary, where I am, there are difficulties sometimes with always being exposed to sun in the day without freezing certain bits of your body off. But where you can expose yourself to natural light, even if it's just your face and hands, even if it's just your face, sometimes there's days where it can only just be your face for a little while. And where you do that more also in the summer, because, vitamin D and all the things that light produces, a lot of those things are fat soluble. That means they go into storage. So you can actually make a bunch in the summer and put it into storage. So don't worry that you have to have it like exactly the amount you need every day for the entire year. That's not true. And even in hot countries, you're not going to see that. So, but it makes a huge impact on your energy. In fact, seasonal affective disorder is really, really associated with too little sunlight exposure. And one of the biggest interventions for that is using a light, and also similarly using antidepressant agents like St. John's wort. Same reason. They're just photosensitizing agents. Next, I want to just speak to supplements a little bit. So I have had the distinct displeasure of seeing some of the stimulant energy booster pills come into my office. I'm not a super big fan of these. I've seen lots of people using caffeine pills for weight loss or whatever to try and stimulate things. And again, some of the actually amount of caffeine dosing has been incredibly high, and I'm surprised people can walk around without being jittery. It's all heck. But in my opinion, the best supplements for improving energy are adrenal adaptogens. So these are herbal adaptogens that help your stress glands have more reserve and to respond more normally to stressors. There are a lot of adaptogenic plants, and they can be targeted to very specific types of stress. Some of them, as an example, are best for immune protection. They're adaptogens that actually just have a much better impact on the kind of adrenal function that supports the action of your immune system. Or they might be ones for pain, or for stress in women or stress in men, or the stress of chronic disease. I have a ton of adaptogenic herbs in the dispensary. So holy basil, ashwagandha, rhodiola, eleutherococcus, polygonum, marl root. I mean, this is just a few of them. What else have I not said? Licorice root, glycyrrhiza. Let's what's another favorite? Cordyceps. It's not really an herb. It's kind of like a caterpillar fungus. And most people who take cordyceps have no idea that's what it is, but it's cultured now. It's not usually grown on the caterpillar, but it's exciting nonetheless. Amla or amlaki, Emblica officinalis, that's a common Ayurvedic herb. Ginseng, the various forms of ginsengs. There's a great number of adaptogenic herbs, and you can use any number of them in combination. A lot of them will work very well in combination. So as an example, I use Adrena plant from the dispensary as an herbal combo that contains a group of herbal adaptogens. I also regularly use encapsulated glandular formulas that create a lot of support for energy. And many of you may have played with these a bit, such as GSF formula or TAD+. There's also homeopathic options for energy like Neurogen. We call it Neurogen in English. It's actually Neuregen in German. So when we're taking those kinds of things, what we're actually doing is we're improving the physical resilience of the adrenal response. And in many people, that creates a much more sustainable type of energy. Now, if your adrenal is really depleted, then doing that is useful, and you'll have to support it for the long term if you're doing the things that are continuing to stress you out and create energy problems. But one of the things I always warn people about is that it can make you feel so much better that you have a tendency to go out and overdo more. And then that's harder. If you really deplete the adrenal to the point where your energy is really poor the first time, and then you take adaptogens and you feel normal again, if you don't give it long enough to recuperate and you decide that you're just going to burn the candle at both ends because you've had so many things on the back burner, it's harder to rescue it the second or the third time from that. So it's really important, again, to manage your energy. We can put good supports underneath you, but the behaviors changing the behaviors is still crucial. So I'm just making a plug for that because I know where some of you live, and I can tell whether or not the garage is being cleaned after you're taking your adrenal support. I threaten that always, and people always look shocked because that's like I'm reading their minds. Like, like somehow the garage for most stressed people is like on the list, but they just can't quite get to it. Now, lots of people have heard about using B vitamins for stress, and it's true that B vitamins are helpful, but not because they have a specific drug-like effect, more because B vitamins are cofactors that help convert energy, like dietary energy, into energy molecules or ATP. So ATP is the form of energy that your body uses pretty much ubiquitously all over for almost everything. And so there's a series of complex chemical reactions that are carried out by the mitochondria in your cells. So if you think back to biology, the mitochondria are the energy-producing organelles. And B vitamins are really important cofactors, enzymatic cofactors. That means they plug in on sites on enzymes that catalyze reactions. And so they're not acting by themselves. They're part of driving normal metabolism. And you use B vitamins up for lots of things. Like a great example is that there's a huge draw on B vitamins for processing oral contraceptive pills. That's a great example. You can really deplete a lot of B vitamins if you're on long-term oral contraceptives or long-term hormone therapies, which lots of people are nowadays. And so when you use them, a lot of them are water soluble, and they're recycled to an extent, and then they're kind of eliminated. So you need to make sure you have enough B vitamins going in. And you can use B vitamins as a supplement. A lot of the B vitamins formulas are kind of a little bit overkill, is what I've noticed for most of them. So again, you just want to make sure that if you take your B vitamins and they make you feel better, by all means, keep doing that. But if you take B vitamins and you can't tell, a lot of the time that means that might not necessarily be the problem. There is one that's harder to absorb. It's B12. B12 is one of the members of the B vitamin family, but it's has a really difficult uptake in the gastrointestinal tract, so it's not uncommon to be deficient. It's really only in animal products in any noticeable amount, so vegans and vegetarians have to be pretty careful to supplement it. It's pretty vital for red blood cell formation and neurological function, and definitely in proper energy creation. So if there's a suspicion that you're deficient in B12, an injection in B12 can often create a boost of energy for a window of time, and then it just kind of fades as it's used up. If you do a B12 shot and you don't notice it, again, it's probably not your problem. It's much more likely in the vegetarian or vegan or in the picky eater that doesn't do a great job at eating a whole range of things. And so, like I said, B vitamins are definitely there, but they don't work in a drug-like effect. They basically are assisting your normal capacity to produce energy. So we've covered a lot of things here, and I know it's a lot to take in. I know I talk a lot over this hour, and I'm giving you lots of pieces of information, but just break it down into small, manageable things that you can incorporate. Just take some of these tips one by one, incorporate them into your life. But first step is just become more aware. Notice your energy, notice where it gets depleted and when it's supported. And think about doing some exercise or some mental field technique, try an adrenal support. Simply just becoming more aware of your energy level at various points can help you influence strategies. So ask yourself, when do you find your energy is lacking the most, and aim to improve that time of day with something that's obvious. If you feel like you're bagged when you wake up, see if you can improve your sleep quality. See if you can use an adrenal adaptogen during the day. See if you need to adjust when you're waking up or when you're sleeping. If you find that, like you really notice your energy is suffering if you don't have a little bit of exercise, just find ways of building a little exercise into your day. Take the stairs, park a little bit farther away from where you're supposed to be. My trick is just walking around the block. Like I have a circular block in my house. So just go once around the block at lunchtime. A lot of the time, I don't know if you've seen me do this, but I'll go outside of the office and just walk around a couple of blocks. It doesn't have to be an hour-long, run. It can just be a little thing to keep your energy going. So if you really look at it, how do you feel right now? Finding something to be excited about is a great way to increase energy and enthusiasm to just improve your lifestyle. And I'll hope you can just use a bit of the excitement to drive you forwards and, continue increasing the level and strength of your energy. So as we're coming to a close here, I like this quote. I think you'll like it. It's a Tony Robbins quote. It says, the higher your energy levels, the more efficient your body. The more efficient your body, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you're going to use your talent to produce outstanding results. So I'm hoping you're going to find some time to produce an outstanding result. Now, I see that there's a question here from Becca about decaf, and I just want to answer that for everybody before we go. Thanks for that question, Becca. It's a good one. Yes, decaf is totally okay if it's the taste that you're looking for. Because there's still a little bit of caffeine actually technically in decaffeinated coffee, but it's not enough to create those kind of reactions. So it's a great idea, like to even alternate between caffeinated and decaffeinated would be brilliant. So I'm so glad you guys joined me today. I know I've just talked your ear off for like 15 minutes. And I hope you'll have a chance to explore some of these things. If you have further questions, please feel free to post them to our Facebook account. That way I can answer everybody. Or you can always get a hold of us at the office directly or through the Synduit emails, which you should be able to see from the email that you got with all of the sign-in information today. Thanks for watching. I love to connect to my patient community to inform and inspire, and I hope you will join us again in the near future. Don't forget to check out whole-life-medicine.com for more webinars and events.